Hi everyone, my name is Katie Saints. Today's video is on sexuality and autism. I want to go over different things related to sexuality and how to talk about sexuality with people on the spectrum and kids in general, really. This is a really important topic that a lot of people are uncomfortable with. And so, unfortunately, because of that, a lot of times it doesn't get talked about as much as it should from healthy sources. But kids at school or the internet often is the source of where kids get their information. And that becomes a problem when they get bad information. And so it's really important that we beat our kids to these conversations before they learn about it from sources that give them bad information or skew it in an unhealthy way. So, when we're talking about sexuality with younger kids, we want to talk about it in a really literal way. We want to give them the facts. The question comes up a lot, how old should the kids be when you start talking about it? And really, you start at a very young age. As young as 3 or 4, sometimes even younger, you start talking about boundaries. You talk about good touch and bad touch and who is okay to give a hug to, who's okay to say no to. If grandma wants a hug, is it okay to say no if I don't want one? Have those conversations with your kids when they're young. If you teach them to set boundaries at that young age, then they will be better and better at it as they grow older. And when those really tricky situations come up, they're going to be better at setting boundaries for themselves and being able to say no or stand up for themselves if they really need to. So, starting those conversations young and modeling that behavior is really important. And it also can be tricky with family because sometimes family won't understand and maybe their feelings will be hurt, like why didn't he give me a hug and why didn't you force him to give me a hug? So it can help if you explain to your family that you're just trying to teach your child boundaries and you're trying to help them understand that it's okay to say no, and that even includes family members. When looking at the stats on sexual abuse, it's actually 95% family members who are doing the sexual abusing. So, as much as we want to say, hey, I don't have to worry about that with my family, the the stats suggest otherwise, that we do need to have boundaries with our family, and sometimes it comes from completely unexpected sources. It might not even be an adult, it could be another kid or a teenager. So you just never know. So it's really good to start preparing your kids really young for this kind of stuff. So the next thing you want to teach your kids about is basic anatomy. And this is where I like to get out textbooks and stick to the facts and stick to biology. This is what this body part does. This is what it's used for. And so, depending on your child's functioning level and the types of questions they ask, that's going to lead where your conversation is going to go. Now, if your child is asking questions, I would recommend that you answer them, just because if you don't and they Google that question or they ask their friends that question, they might get information that you don't want them to have. The information could be incorrect, the information could be too much or inappropriate. And so if you give them that answer and satisfy that curiosity, hopefully then you're going to protect them from getting exposed to the wrong kind of information. So, next thing I want to talk about is that how to how to help kids understand these kind of things as they go through puberty. So for males, once they go through puberty, there's going to be a lot more sexual urges. They might have the temptation to masturbate. They might be more attracted to girls and want to pursue girls. All of these things are normal and healthy. However, a lot of our kids struggle with how to do that, and how to do that in a way that doesn't get them into trouble. Many of our clients have masturbated in public or have hit on other girls or boys and pursued them, and then they got in trouble for it because they didn't understand the signs that meant no or back off, I'm not interested. So going over those nonverbal cues are really important, and helping them understand and analyze, is that person interested in you? And if they portray these kind of signs, then you should back off. Um, Additionally, they need to understand the black and white of where it's okay to masturbate, when it's okay to masturbate. You can actually have health problems if you masturbate too often, because autism often is associated with perseverating on things. People with autism are at risk to masturbate too often. And so when I say too often, what I mean by that is many times a day. And so that can lead to chronic fatigue. It can lower the immune system. It can cause baldness, and there's different health issues that are associated with that. And so it can lead to yeast infections in girls and just all that kind of stuff. So we want to limit that so it doesn't become something that they fixate on or do too often. A lot of the kiddos that we work with are into stimming, so they like to do things sensory-wise that feels good. Some of our kids will flap their hands or dangle a string, and some kids will discover that their sexual body parts feel good, and they'll start to stim on that. And so they'll do that in public places or in front of people, and it can create some uncomfortable situations for their family members or for themselves. And so we want to help protect our kids from situations like that as well. So even if they're doing it out of innocence, we still want to shape it so that they're not going to get in trouble for it, and so that they're doing it in a way that's safe and not in front of inappropriate people or anything like that. So we really want to be bold and comfortable talking about those things. But we also need to be really careful not to shame kids about it. Sexuality is a part of being human. And so our kids are going to develop sexuality, and that is normal and that is okay. And so if we're uncomfortable, say you catch your child doing a sexual act, whether it's masturbating or whatever, and you're super uncomfortable about it, so you freak out and you start yelling, stop doing that, that sort of response, that can cause a shame response, and that can lead to later sexual dysfunction and relationship problems and things like that. So we just want to be really careful that we handle sexuality in a respectful way, in a calm way, so that we're not accidentally associating shame and guilt with sexual behaviors, so that later in life they can have a healthy sexual relationship with their partner someday, if that's something that they choose. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is pornography and sexuality. So one thing that's really common with people with autism is that pornography can become really addictive. In general, they say that pornography is as addictive as cocaine, and they found that with autism it can be even more addicting. And so we want to be really careful that we protect our kiddos from this so it doesn't become a problem. And in addition to that, we want to be really careful about what they learn from pornography. A lot of times, pornography is going to portray sexuality in a way that shouldn't be replicated in real life. For example, one kiddo watched a pornographic video where the pizza person came over and then sexual intercourse happened. So this child wanted to replicate that situation, or this teenager wanted to replicate that situation. So they ordered a pizza and they tried to initiate making that happen. The child got in a lot of trouble because of it, but because of his literal mind and him seeing this movie where that occurred, he thought that's how it worked. And so that's why it's really important that if you think that your child has been exposed to pornography, that you ask them about what they've seen and what sort of things they've been exposed to, because they might have some unhealthy expectations or understanding of what sexuality is because of what they've been exposed to. And so we just want to make sure we know what that is so that we can teach them the healthy way to handle it. And we want to unteach any bad information that they got. Along those lines as well, it's so important to teach your children healthy and unhealthy relationship traits. Some of our kids will share with us that they feel like they have a really hard time getting a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and so they feel like they should just take whoever they can get, that they'd just be lucky to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. And so I think that conversation is so important to be talked about because we don't want our kids settling. We know how much value they have and how much they can add to a relationship. And we don't want them to think because they have autism or because their social skills aren't as good as they wish it was, or whatever thought process that they have that they think they're not qualified to have a healthy relationship for. We want to help them understand that they shouldn't lower their standards and they should hold out for someone who will treat them well. But at the same time, we also need to teach them that if you want to be with a good person, you have to be a good person yourself. So if you're yelling and screaming and calling them names, but you expect them to never treat you that way, that you're probably not going to be able to keep someone in a relationship with you if they follow those rules and you don't. And so, going over healthy relationship traits, how to treat someone, what's creepy, describing that, or what's coming on too strong. Well, how can you push somebody away with affection? How much affection is too much? How do you know when you can hold somebody's hand? All of those conversations are so important because our kiddos might not figure that out on their own, and their trial and error can get them into trouble sometimes. Um, I've had plenty of clients who have gotten in trouble with the law for really innocent reasons that they just didn't understand it was appropriate. One of my kiddos videotaped a girl at the pool because he thought she was a really good diver. And so he's like, wow, she's got really good diving skills. I want to videotape that. I had no idea how creepy it looked to be videotaping someone at the pool that he didn't know. And he ended up getting arrested because of it. And so he had no idea how bad it looked. So that's why we need to break down those conversations and make sure our kids understand and make sure that they're prepared for what kind of situations they're going to be exposed to, how to handle them, how to have good boundaries, how fast to move in a relationship, when to say I love you, when to kiss for the first time, how to know if someone wants to kiss you back. All of these things are really important to talk about and really important to teach. There's a book that I really like to use as a guide. It's called 30 Days of Sex Talks. There's actually 3 of them, and they target 3 different age groups. The first book is for ages 3 to 7, and it's really great for just setting those basic boundaries. Good touch, bad touch, good secrets, bad secrets, basic anatomy, hygiene, just kind of that basic stuff. What's the difference between a boy and a girl? And it just leads you through 30 topics, and then it gives you discussion questions and activities to do around those topics. I really like using that as a guide because it's really thorough, and then I know I don't miss anything. The next book is for ages 8 to 12, I believe, and that covers a little more advanced topics, and starts going over those pre-relationship type topics as well, and conversations. And that book is really fantastic too. And then the last book is for ages 13 plus, and that covers more deeper topics such as pornography and sexuality, and different different terminology that they might be exposed to. Talking to your kids about slang is actually important too, so that they don't get into awkward situations simply because they didn't know what a word meant. So, teaching them about that too, and when they can use it, when they can't use it, when it'd be inappropriate or offensive, is really good to talk about as well. Which leads to the next topic about what is illegal and what isn't. So, teaching our kids about the laws related to sexuality is really important, especially when they're around 17, 18, 19, 20. Understanding the difference between someone who's underage and the consequences of looking at pictures of people who are underage, or having a sexual relationship with someone who is underage, making sure they understand that. Or even just the definition of sexual harassment. Sexual harassment can happen even if you're not targeting a specific person. So if two people are talking about a sexual situation and somebody else overhears it and is uncomfortable with that, that's actually sexual harassment. And the person who's uncomfortable could call the police about that and make a charge. And so our kids need to understand where the laws are on that, so that they're not accidentally getting themselves in trouble. Um, one one child got in trouble with the law because she was really just craving that male attention, and she understood that she could get a reaction if she sent topless pictures of herself. So she sent topless pictures of herself to as many guys as she knew their email address to. Well, one of the parents of those boys discovered this email and was pretty upset about it and reported her to the police. She was charged at creating child pornography, and was got into a ton of trouble with the law because of that. And again, it came from a somewhat innocent place, in that she didn't understand how serious that was. She didn't understand it was illegal. And she didn't understand why it was a big deal to send people pictures of herself without clothing. She didn't understand that it could be shared or that other people would see it. All of that stuff were things she never considered. And, the whole topic of social media with our kids is so important, because there's this false sense of safety on social media, but they can get into so much trouble. People pretending to be something that they're not and luring them into doing things, or people giving them guilt trips like, hey, everyone's doing it. One of my clients was sharing with me that she would literally follow the advice of any of her friends about what to do socially, because she viewed herself as having bad social skills. And so she said, if my friends tell me this is what everyone's doing, I'm going to do it because I want to fit in socially and I don't know how to. So I'm going to take my friend's advice. That mentality really puts her at risk. If somebody tells her, hey, send me naked pictures because that's what everyone's doing, and you'd be really uptight if you didn't, she absolutely would. And so we need to prepare our kids for that, and we need to help equip them so they know how to say no to that, and that it's okay to say no to that, and that sometimes it's okay if you don't fit in. Sometimes the right thing to do isn't popular or might upset somebody, and that's okay. And so we just got to talk about these things with our kids. We got to make sure they understand, and we need to be comfortable ourselves, because if our children can see that we are just painfully uncomfortable with the topic, then they're going to be less likely to want to talk about it with us. They're going to understand that it makes you uncomfortable, and so they might not open up as much. Say you can't cover up how uncomfortable you are, one thing you can do is just say to them, like, hey, this is a really uncomfortable topic. It's hard to talk about, but it's so important that it's worth it. So if mom seems a little uncomfortable today, that's okay. And so just kind of labeling it and normalizing it, maybe that would help them as well get over any nervousness they have, or help them be okay with any nervousness that they might have. So those are just super important things to talk about. One last thing I'd like to talk about related to sexuality is the importance of being very descriptive. One of our kiddos misunderstood what her parent meant when she said, you can't get pregnant until you get married. She took that literal, and so she didn't think she needed to use birth control, and she got pregnant because she thought her mom meant she literally was not capable of getting married, or capable of having a baby until she was married. So she didn't think she needed to use protection. Another kid was taught how to use a condom from their parents by using a banana to demonstrate. So then the first time that child or young adult had sex, they brought a banana with a condom on it to the bedroom, and they thought that would prevent them from getting pregnant or getting STDs. So that kind of stuff happens. So that's why it's really important that we're really thorough and literal about how we're describing things. Teaching about STDs is super important. Teaching about how somebody gets pregnant and what it means to raise a child and the responsibilities of that, so that our kids don't romanticize that, thinking, oh, it'd be so fun to be a mom or a dad, and not understanding the responsibility of that. That's really important to talk about too. We really, really need to break down what consent means, what it means. How do you know if somebody's consenting to have sex with you or kiss you or hold your hand or even just talk to you? Just breaking that down. Helping them understand that if somebody says no, they have to respect that. And that no means no, no matter where they are in the process, even if a sexual interaction started. They need to respect that no matter what. So that is the overview on sexuality. If you are uncomfortable with those topics, if you feel like you can't talk about those topics, please contact a professional. If you're through Fox Valley Autism, your therapists are trained on how to talk about it. We have healthy relationship classes where we work through those kind of things with kids and do activities and have discussions and role playing on how to be in a healthy relationship, how to have boundaries, what the laws are, all that kind of stuff. So make sure you're having these conversations with your kids, or bringing people into your life who can have these conversations with your kids, so that we can protect them. Our kids are at risk for getting in trouble with the law, or for being victimized in different ways sexually. And so if we have these conversations, we can help protect them, and we can help equip them to be safe when we're not there to watch them. Because as much as we want to be there and protect them from everything in the world, they're going to go out and be exposed to people who we can't protect them from. And so they're going to need to have skills to know what to do, so that they're not making choices that get them into trouble, or that they're able to defend themselves from people who are making poor choices towards them. So again, please contact me if you have any questions, or if you would like to talk about it further, specifically related to your child. I feel like this topic is really important and it's under talked about. So please reach out. Thanks.